Dear students. In this talk, I shall be bringing you all about uh, the composition of meat and especially the different types of meats, the types of muscles, cells, and their structures, the chemistry of muscle post-mortem or after death, simply the process of natural conversion of muscles to meat. So, while studying meat, we should be knowing some introductory brief about the different kinds of meat and the meat industry. So in India, we come across different meats in the market. While killing and selling of numbers of animals and birds are banned in India, some of those are common in the markets of some foreign countries, probably due to natural abundance of the organisms. The pictures shown in this slide are known to all of us. But considering the global approach of meat science and general knowledge, I am putting a few of the important keywords whose meanings you should know. First, the carcass. The carcass means skin degutted. Degutted means the viscera or the digestive system of the animal has been removed, but it is uncut, that it has not been cut into pieces. So, such a full animal which has been degutted and skinned is called carcass. The carcass is further cut into the meat pieces. Red meat and white meat. So red meat and white meat, I think you know about. Animals' meat are called red meat, and it is red due to the high abundance of protein, myoglobin, which forms dark red pigment. Then lean meat. So considering the example of a piece of pork, we can easily distinguish the fatty portion and a meaty portion. So that meaty portion, which is rich in meat or the protein, is called the lean meat. It is the muscle or protein-rich portion of the meat. Then comes the nomenclature of mutton and chevron. So generally in India we call mutton as the goat meat, but it is not true. Actually, the sheep meat is called mutton, while goat meat is called chevron. Veal is the meat of cattle calf. Venison is the meat of deer. Then the muscle structures of chicken and turkey are different. Then the term abattoir. Abattoir is the slaughterhouse, is the technical term used for slaughterhouse. And abattoir is specifically the slaughterhouses which are used for safe cutting of meat. And the term mayo, it's actually a prefix that I have put here. The mayo prefix will be coming again and again over. And it is related to meat. So meat, anything related to meat is often denoted by the prefix myo, like myofibrils means the meat muscle fibers, and then myocardial, myo something. So everything when the term myo is there, it will be related to the meat or muscle sciences or muscle technologies or technical terms associated with muscles. The composition of different popular meat as per the website of FAO has been put here. So one important thing is that red meat has higher or better quality of protein. So by better quality of protein, we mean the right types of amino acids in the right proportions as required by our body. And red meat is also richer in vitamins and minerals, especially iron. But the disadvantage or drawback of red meat consumption is that red meats are high in cholesterol and saturated fats, and persons with less physical activity may develop cardiac issues due to their deposition in the body. So the best combination is to consume red meat when you are working out. So if your physical activities are optimum, then it's okay to consume red meat, but people with sedentary lifestyle should not consume much of red meat. So the definition of meat as per the Codex Alimentarius Commission is meat comprises all parts of an animal that are intended for or have been judged as safe and suitable for human consumption. And meat is rich in vitamin B12 and iron, which are not readily available in vegetarian diets. But uh, plant-based meat alternatives these days are being developed for the market, and currently they are one of the key research areas in the domain of food science and technology. So the different muscle types and structures. So meat eaters can relate to the difference in the mouthfeel while chewing meat portions of different parts of an animal's body. So when we are consuming meat, the mouthfeel that the heart gives is different from what the leg piece or the intestine has. So specifically, meat from bony parts, glands, and organs like the hearts and those from the intestine taste distinctly different. This difference in meat texture is related to the tissue structure and the differently shaped and differently arranged cells into respective tissues. Broadly considering, muscle cells can be categorized into three types. The first one is cardiac muscle cells. They comprise heart the, and some internal organs and glands. Skeletal muscle cells, those are the most popular ones and form most part of the meat, and they are associated with the bones. And the smooth muscle cells, they form the blood vessels and the different glands. So both cardiac muscle cells and skeletal muscle cells contain several numbers of mitochondria. Mitochondria, as we have studied earlier, is the powerhouse of cells. They are called powerhouse of cells as uh, they produce the energy required for our body. And the muscle cells, especially the cardiac muscle cells and skeletal muscle cells, have high number of mitochondria because they need more power, they need more energy, they need more ATP, and they require it for the contraction and expansion, the regular activity of the muscle cells. For the contraction and expansion of the muscle cells, they require a huge amount of ATP, and therefore the cells contain large number of mitochondria. So here we are showing the arrangement of cells in different muscles. While cardiac and smooth muscles from membrane structures, and because they form a membrane or sheet-like structure, as they need to form a continuous membrane like that of heart and blood vessels, which will be expanding and contracting. Like the heart, it keeps on pumping, so it should be a membranous type of tissue. Or the blood vessels, inside which the blood is flowing, so it should be forming a thick pipe, so it has to be membranous. So the cardiac and smooth muscles, they form membranous structures. In the left side of the slide you can see, but the structure of skeletal muscles is different and is important because most of the meat that we consume are skeletal muscles, are converted forms of skeletal muscles. So skeletal muscles form a fibrous arrangements, they are like fibers. And myofibrils, on the slide if you can identify this myofibril, they are the smallest units of skeletal muscles, and each myofibers, this myofibril, they comprise to form a myofiber, which is also called a muscle fiber. So all these myofibrils, they constitute a cell which is called muscle fiber, and each myofiber is an individual cell. So from the bone, the muscle is attached to the bone with tendon. Then comes the fascia or the fascicles, which are bundle of muscle cells or myofiber cells. And these myofibers are individual cells and which are again comprised of small myofibrils. And these myofibrils are again formed by some filaments, some thick and thin filaments, which we'll be discussing. So skeletal muscles are important as they form major portion of the meat, as I said. So each myofiber, which are also muscle cells. So each myofiber or muscle cell is made up of numerous parallelly arranged myofibrils. And so myofiber is the muscle fiber. This you should remember. Myofiber is the muscle fiber and myofibril are the muscle cells. So myofibrils, they comprise to form myofiber, which is the muscle fiber. So each myofibril again contains two kinds of protein filaments arranged inside it. They are parallelly arranged inside the muscle fibrils, sorry. And those are thick filaments which are largely myosin. So myosin is the protein that forms the thick filaments, and the thin filaments are formed by majorly by actin and minorly by troponin and tropomyosin. So in this we need to remember the thick filament is myosin and thin filament is basically actin. So largely it is actin. So actin is the major thin filament. So in the diagram also you can see is a muscle cell, and inside which is a myofibril, and these myofibrils will again be comprised of thick and thin filaments. Thick filaments of myosin and thin filaments of largely actin. And the thick and thin filaments are arranged alternately, resulting in distinctive visibility of the two types of filaments under microscope. So if you see under microscope, the thick and thin filaments will be visible, and there you will see distinct segregations of portions under the microscope because of the thickness and thinness of the filaments. The myosin or thick filament and the actin, the thin filament, are parallel and remain necessarily separated during the muscle contraction and relaxation. So you can see the thin filaments and the thick filaments, they remain separated. They run parallelly, they remain separated because for the muscles to contract and expand, they need to remain separated. So this state of separate existence of actin and myosin filaments is regulated by the availability of ATP in the cells. So as long as there is ATP in the cells, adenosine triphosphate in the cells, so these thick and thin filaments will remain separated. So alternate thick and thin filaments under microscope, you can see these striations are visible. So in this slide, we are showing the arrangement of the myosin, or the thick filaments, and actin, the thin filaments. But in actuality, although myosin is called a thick element or thick filament, they are actually a combination of thick bundles connected by thin filaments, often called as thin myosin. So you can see there are thick portions, and as well as there are some thin portions of myosin, but actin is uniformly thin throughout. So this is actin and this is myosin. Myosin has thicker bundles as well as some thinner portions also connecting the thicker bundles with one another like this. So these thick bundles are connected by thin filaments, while actin it's uniformly throughout, it is thinner than the myosin. So when you observe under the microscope, as I see, you can see the striations. So under microscope, each myofiber is seen with alternating light and dark bands. Light bands are called eye bands that extends from the edge of the thick filaments to the edge of the next thick filament. So from one thick filament to the edge of the next thick filament, the eye bands will run, and these eye bands are lighter in color, so they are also called light bands, and it is lighter in color and is composed of the thin actin filaments only. So eye bands or the light bands are composed of thin actin filaments only. The dark bands are called A bands. The dark bands are called A bands and composed of regions containing both thick and thin filaments. So it will have regions containing both thick and thin filament. It will be dark in color and are called A bands. So myosin thin filaments coming from two adjacent myosin thick bundles are connected at the Z disc junction. So in the diagram you can see the Z disc at the Z disc where the myosin thin filaments coming from the thick bundles from two different thick bundles they will meet. So this is one thin myosin coming, this is another thin myosin coming from another which is not shown here, another bundle, and they will be meeting one another at the Z disc region. So, and this slide shows the actual scanning electron microscopic image of the skeletal muscle fibers denoting the I band, A band, and the Z disc zones. So you can see all the zones and the types of fibers and their arrangements and the bands, the I bands, the A bands, those are clearly visible under the scanning electron microscope. So coming to the muscle chemistry and the changes when the animal dies and when it is converted to meat. So as I mentioned earlier, muscle cells, especially cardiac and skeletal muscle cells, contain large amount of mitochondria in order to produce ATP required for their periodic contraction and relaxation. Energy is produced by the metabolism known as glycolysis that you have already studied about glycolysis in your +2 or maybe before that also. So energy is produced by glycolysis. And in glycolysis what happens? Glycogen is broken down to glucose. So glycogen is the form of carbohydrate stored in the body. So glycogen is broken down into glucose and also glucose and some fatty acids in the form of glucose and fatty acids from the bloodstream is collected by the muscle cells and they're further metabolized and converted to pyruvic acid as well as energy. So generally what happens, what is the intermediate product of glycolysis is called pyruvic acid and there is also liberation of ATP. The pyruvic acid now inside the mitochondria, the pyruvic acid is again metabolized to form energy, this ATP molecule. And all these occur under the presence of oxygen and hence called the aerobic pathway. As it only occurs under the presence of oxygen, this ATP liberation and all. So it is called the aerobic pathway of glycolysis. But if somehow the oxygen supply is stopped or is reduced, so what happens? If the supply of oxygen into the cells is hampered or disturbed or stopped, so pyruvic acid follow an anaerobic pathway and produces lactic acid instead of ATP. So in anaerobic condition, lactic acid will be formed. Typically under aerobic condition, ATP is formed. So in the normal condition, in the aerobic condition, the liberated ATP is used for running the sodium, potassium and calcium pumps. So these are the pumps, those occur across the cell membranes. So the liberated ATP is used for running the sodium, potassium and calcium pumps in the muscle cells and assisting their smooth functioning, that is contraction and expansion activities. So you can see the basic or the brief of the glycolytic pathway, and in this the involvement of the enzymes is not shown. Actually in each step there are involvement of some enzymes. Lots of enzymes are involved in the glycolysis pathway. So the glycogen by glycolysis it is converting to ATP and the intermediate product pyruvate. So the pyruvate inside the mitochondria, it is being further metabolized by in the presence of oxygen to liberate ATP again. Okay, and apart from the glycogen, glucose and fatty acid from the bloodstream is also coming and taking part in the glycolysis, and also being converted to pyruvate, then to in mitochondria converting to ATP, and this ATP is being used in the contraction and expansion of the muscle cells and running of the calcium and sodium potassium pumps. So what happens when an animal dies? As we are accustomed to eating dead animals and birds, because we kill the animals, generally we kill the animals and birds before eating. So we're accustomed with eating dead animals and birds. And the post-death or post-mortem chemical changes occurring in the metabolic pathway and subsequent changes in the tissue texture while converting the muscle to meat are important. While discussing post-mortem changes, changes in the energy metabolism and changes in the proteinous meat texture are important. So as the chemistry changes, the physical properties also change. As the chemistry inside the body is changing after death, its effect is there on the tissue texture also. So here, if you see the glycolytic pathway, the dotted lines, those coming from the bloodstream, the oxygen and the liberated CO2, and from mitochondria towards the ATP. If you see it carefully, they indicate the paths that immediately shuts down upon the animal's death. So when an animal dies, the supply of glucose and fatty acid from the the bloodstream, it stops. The supply of oxygen is stopped, and as the oxygen is stopped, the mitochondria, it cannot act on the mitochondria cannot synthesize ATP from pyruvic acid. So these are the abnormality in the pathway that starts after death. The pyruvic acid therefore takes the anaerobic pathway. Now it was aerobic as the supply of oxygen was there. Now it will, as the oxygen is not there, it will take the anaerobic pathway, and as I told you before, it will start forming lactic acid. So the cells will be filled gradually, it will start filling with lactic acid, and the lactic acid drops the pH of the cell's interior. So inside of the cells, inside the muscle cells, the pH will drop because of the deposition of lactic acid. The glycolysis will take place to an extent. As you can see, the dotted lines are only stopped, but the initial portion of the glycolysis, it will still continue to an extent. To a time it will still continue, but as the pH is decreasing because of the deposition of lactic acid, as the pH is decreasing, and we know that enzymes are active at certain pH only. So as the pH is decreasing, the enzymes involved in glycolysis gradually deactivates and the glycolytic process stops. So after stopping of the glycolysis, some of the glycogen will remain in the tissues. So some of the glycogen is used up by glycolysis to an extent. Because of the lowering of the pH, the enzymes involved in glycolysis are deactivated and the process will stop, because of which there will be some glycogen fraction remaining in the tissues. And as there is no more formation of ATP or no more liberation of energy, the sodium, potassium and calcium pumps would stop. So again, so after the death, what will happen? As the calcium pump has stopped, the calcium ions those were being used in the calcium pump, those will be free now. And These calcium ions, they will activate certain tissue enzymes which are called calpain enzymes. These are called calpain enzymes. So these calpain enzymes are proteolytic enzymes. They are protein degrading enzymes, and they get activated by associating with the calcium ions released from the cell membrane. So calpains are proteolytic enzymes, and upon activation, they start hydrolyzing the myofibrillar proteins. The protein, it will gradually degrade. So partially or completely degenerating the muscle fibers or the muscle protein fibers. So the calpain is the enzyme, so which will get activated after that, and it will gradually start eating or degenerating the muscle fibers. So when an animal dies, the metabolism presented by the dotted lines immediately ceases. The oxygen supply to the mitochondria stops, stopping the ATP formation. Pyruvate take anaerobic pathway and forms lactic acid. Glucose and fatty acid transport from bloodstream into the cell stop. Glycolysis continues but gradually ceases as enzymes are inactive at low pH. As ATP is no more available, calcium and sodium potassium pumps are also stopped. So with this change in chemistry, there will be corresponding change in the muscle protein and muscle texture also. Initially, muscle stiffening due to shortening of muscle fibers occurs. So muscle initially gets stiffened because of shortening, the muscle fibers get shortened. So immediately after that, this stiffening of the body, stiffening of the muscles occur. And it is known by a Latin term called rigor mortis. Rigor mortis, meaning the stiffening of muscles after death. This rigor mortis can be distinguished into three distinct phases. The delay phase, it occurs immediately after death. The muscle flexibility remains almost constant for some time. For some time, the flexibility of the muscle, if you take a strip of muscle and test its flexibility with some texture analyzer, the flexibility of the muscle will remain constant for a while. It's followed by the onset phase, in which the flexibility of the muscle strip extensively declines. It very rapidly declines down, and there will be a completion phase when it's the final stage when there is no more decline in the extensibility of the muscle, and the muscle becomes stiff. There will be no extensibility in the muscle. So these are the three phases: delay phase, onset phase, and completion phase. So this figure, it shows different chemical changes occurring post-mortem and causing the rigor mortis. So you can see in the figure, the pH, it gradually drops, the supply of ATP, it gradually drops, the lactic acid, it increasing, the extensibility, initially it is increasing. So immediately after that, these chemical changes occur. So this is in this slide, it shows the figure which indicates the changes in flexibility of a muscle strip during the different phases of rigor mortis. You can see the delay phase, the extensibility is still there, the extensibility, it is the extension and release like this. Okay, you are putting a weight and you are releasing the weight, so the amount of area it goes back, it measures the extensibility. So at the initial phase, the delay phase, the extensibility is intact. At particular point, the extensibility starts decreasing until the point when it is completely lost. It is called the onset phase. And after it is completed, if there is no more extensibility, it is called the complete phase or the completion phase. Now we have to study the interrelation. So interrelation occurs between the changes in the metabolic pathway as discussed after death and the corresponding changes in muscle texture. The initiation and completion of rigor mortis is associated with the availability, lowering, and depletion of ATP in the muscles. So as long as there is ATP, the rigor mortis is continuing. Once the ATP is lost, the rigor mortis also completes. As mentioned earlier, ATP is required to maintain the separation between the thin actin and thick myosin filaments. If you remember, there is a constant separation between these parallel filaments, actin and myosin. So those has well, for a living organism, those has to be maintained so that the contraction of and expansion of muscle can occur freely. And for that separation to be there, we need ATP molecules. Then now when the ATP is exhausted or it's finished, no more ATP is available, the two filaments, as you can see in the figure, the two filaments come closer and the myosin heads, you can see the myosin structure, there are some head protruding out from the myosin fiber. So the myosin heads, they attach firmly with the actin filaments, forming a dense, condensed, compact, shortened, stiff actin-myosin complex. So you can see in the figure, it is in the living condition, these myosin and actin are separated. They are necessarily separated with a supply of ATP. Now after that, the ATP is exhausted. So what happens? These heads of myosin, so naturally they attach with the actin filaments, and gradually this bonding it increases, and with its increase, the stiffening of the muscle increases. And the rigor mortis, as will require different types of muscle, different textures of muscle, different pH of muscle. So this rigor mortis, it can be controlled by uh, regulating different conditions, maybe controlling the temperature of the abator and storehouse, killing the animal in its calm state, keeping the post-mortem pH level high, and use of tissue softening methods. So all these methods and these protocols and these controlling systems, this will be discussing in a broad way, and also the other topics discussed in this talk in a broader way in our regular classes at our Department of Food Technology, Mizoram University. Thank you. Best wishes